It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Israel orders an inquiry after its forces strike the last functioning hospital in southern Gaza, killing at least 20 people. Among them, 5 journalists killed in a second strike as they rushed to the scene in what Israel's prime minister has called a tragic mishap. Also tonight, 3 people are killed in a helicopter crash on the Isle of Wight during a flying lesson. Mounting pressure on the Prime Minister over the small boats crisis as Nigel Farage prepares to unveil his plans for mass deportations. Plus, more than 1 million people celebrate Europe's biggest street party at the Notting Hill Carnival. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. Israel's prime minister says an Israeli strike on a hospital in Gaza that killed 20 people, including 5 journalists, was a tragic mishap. Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel values the work of journalists, medical staff and all civilians and confirmed the military is investigating the incident. The IDF struck the Nasser hospital, one of the last remaining major medical facilities still functioning in the territory, before hitting it again as journalists and rescue workers rushed to the scene. Our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons has this report.
This the scene around 15 minutes after Nasser hospital had been attacked by the Israeli military, rescue workers scrambling and an Arabic TV channel broadcasting live. And then a second attack hits exactly the same place, killing those who had come to help. At least 20 people were killed here in what is the only functioning hospital in the south of Gaza.
Targeting civil defense workers is a crime. It is another entry in the history of Israel's war against us. It is a war crime against our people and against those who are simply trying to provide humanitarian aid. Our mission is clear: to save lives.
Among the victims, 5 journalists whose work had been seen around the world. Media workers regularly gather at this hospital to get stories and to use an internet connection. More than 200 journalists, almost all Palestinian, have been killed in Gaza since the start of the war. 19 of them worked for the Al Jazeera network.
You're talking now about a clear strategy from the IDF and the Israeli government to target local journalists, try to silence the story. And we've been talking about this since the beginning of the war, the fact that no international journalist is allowed to enter Gaza up until this time, and the fact that local journalists have been smeared, targeted and killed is a way and a strategy to silence the story.
Among the dead, photographer Mariam Daka, her camera recovered from the scene. These were journalists who had spent nearly 2 years documenting life under attack in Gaza, and some of their work was very high profile. This is one of Israel's best-known newspapers, and this morning on the front page there's a photo from Mariam Daka. But within hours of this being published, she was dead. Her bulletproof vest placed on the coffin. There was no defence against such an explosion. The Israeli military has launched an investigation. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has described the attack as a tragic mishap.
I would like to be clear from the start. The IDF does not intentionally target civilians. The IDF makes every effort to mitigate harm to civilians while ensuring the safety of our troops.
Israel denies targeting media workers, but a few hours after the attack on Nasser hospital, another journalist was killed, shot in his tent in Khan Yunis. And while all this happens, so Israel masses its military might, ready to encircle and occupy Gaza City. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
And Adam has more now from Jerusalem.
We've had today a couple of curious turns of phrase. I mean, tragic mishap. does seem like a rather odd way to explain away a double strike on a hospital that has killed 20 people. Earlier, the IDF put out a statement saying that it does not target journalists as such. And as you said, Benjamin Netanyahu saying it does value the work of journalists, medical staff, and all civilians. It says there's going to be a thorough investigation. I think history shows that quite often these investigations, despite the fact that earlier the IDF said that it would have full transparency, these investigations don't turn out to be completely transparent and very rarely get to the full facts of the matter or hold somebody accountable. So we will wait and see on this one. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu ends that statement by saying, our war is with Hamas terrorists, our just goals are defeating Hamas and bringing our hostages home. And ultimately, he will say that everything that is happening is because of Hamas. That if Hamas were to release these hostages, then Israel would cease its bombardment, that any kind of ceasefire would have to be predicated on the basis of releasing hostages. The flip side of that is that there are plenty within Israel who believes that the country should stop this, that it should stop the war, that that is the key to bringing hostages home. And there are even those, certainly within the Israeli military, who are uncomfortable about the plans for further military action that the country is going through, and certainly those who believe that what happened today was an absolutely appalling error that is going to cost support. I mean, ultimately, he may say this was a mishap, but this hospital is very well known. It's the only functioning hospital in the south of Gaza. It's also known as a place where journalists gather to use the internet and to pursue stories. To attack this hospital was very likely to seriously injure journalists. But I think the big question that people want to know is why on earth this double attack? It looks on the face of it exactly the sort of tactic used by Russia, used by Syria during the days of Assad. When you launch one attack, you lure in rescue workers, and then you launch another attack. It is being condemned by so much of the world, and tonight admitted by Prime Minister Netanyahu, and this is not a man who easily admits mistakes, to having been a mishap.
3 people have died in a helicopter crash on the Isle of Wight. One person was airlifted to hospital after the aircraft, carrying 4 passengers, crashed into a field during a flying lesson. Sky's Dan Whitehead reports now from the Isle of Wight.
It was a flying lesson that has ended in the worst possible way. 3 people on board the helicopter died just minutes after taking off. Operated by Northumbria Helicopters, the aircraft departed Sandown Airport on the Isle of Wight at 9 a.m, just a mile and a half from the crash site.
So it's very difficult. I think everyone's horrified. I mean, the loss of any life is just devastating to people. When something should be so safe and is deemed to be so safe, and then something goes wrong, it's heartbreaking. I knew the pilot only from him coming here and doing the pleasure flights, which he's been doing for the last, I think, about 2 years. He's an extremely professional and experienced commercial pilot, as they all are, which, it's just heartbreaking when these things happen.
Emergency services were called to reports of a downed helicopter on Shanklin Road at around 9:20. A major incident was declared.
This is as close as we can get to the crash site. You can see the investigation work is continuing behind me. This is August bank holiday weekend. The Isle of Wight is full of tourists, and the locals living here have been telling me it was a miracle that there wasn't a car travelling on the road at the same time.
There were so many ambulances, fire engines, the Coast Guard even van came up this way. I knew something had happened, and then I had to refer to social media to find out what was going on. Then the police appeared and closed off the road. We knew it was really serious then.
Police are continuing to work to contact the families of those who've died. The 4th passenger, airlifted to hospital in Southampton, remains in a serious condition. Air Accident Investigation Branch officers arrived late on Monday. Their work now begins to understand just how this tragedy unfolded. Dan Whitehead, Sky News, on the Isle of Wight.
10 child protection organisations have written an urgent letter to the Home Secretary expressing deep concern about the government's strategy to stop violence against women and girls. And it comes after Sky News revealed a leaked Home Office document which said victims of child sexual abuse will not be in the scope of the plans. Sky's Molly Malone reports.
VAUG is violence against women and girls. If you take child sexual abuse out of it, where are the girls?
That was Poppy's reaction after Sky News revealed that child sexual abuse may not be a prominent part of the government's upcoming strategy to tackle violence against women and girls. Poppy was sexually abused and raped by her grandfather when she was just 4 years old. He was convicted and died in prison. Now, aged 20, she campaigns for better protections for children, but she has concerns.
Children are once again being left in the air with no one advocating for them at the moment.
Poppy's fears have been echoed by 10 child protection groups who've written to the Home Secretary to raise their concerns about child sexual abuse being omitted from the strategy, saying the government cannot truly tackle violence against women and girls without tackling the sexual abuse of children.
Without a focus on child sexual abuse and exploitation, the strategy will really miss a golden opportunity. If the government doesn't seize this opportunity, then yet again, the needs and best interests of those girls will be overlooked.
The government told us its violence against women and girls strategy will include action to tackle child sexual abuse, that they recognise the issues overlap, but they also say they'll set out a distinct programme to address its specific crimes. It's this internal Home Office document that we obtained. It's titled Draft Definition of VAUG, that's violence against women and girls. It then goes on to say the strategy recognises the links between child sexual exploitation and abuse and violence against women and girls, but says it's not explicitly within the scope of the strategy.
My message to the government is that if you're going to make child sexual abuse a separate thing, we need it now.
In a statement, the government said they're working tirelessly to tackle the appalling crimes of violence against women and girls and child sexual exploitation and abuse. We're already investing in new programmes and introducing landmark laws to overhaul the policing and criminal justice response to these crimes. It's estimated there are 500,000 children like Poppy in England and Wales who are sexually abused every year. Campaigners and charities that support them are clear. They need to be at the centre of any plan to tackle violence against women and girls. Molly Malone, Sky News.
Time now for a look at some of the day's other top stories. And the man who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador by US officials could now be sent to Costa Rica or Uganda. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was brought back to face human smuggling charges, which he denies. The 30-year-old has become a symbol of Donald Trump's hardline immigration policies. The only survivor of a lunch made with poisonous mushrooms says he's felt half alive since his wife's death, but says he forgives the woman who killed her. 50-year-old Erin Patterson was found guilty last month in Australia of killing 3 relatives with a beef Wellington 2 years ago. Members of the National Guard patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. have begun carrying guns in an escalation of a directive issued by the U.S. Defense Secretary last week. The development comes as President Donald Trump considers expanding the deployments to other Democrat-led states and cities. Sir Keir Starmer faces mounting pressure over the small boats crisis after protests outside asylum hotels continued over the bank holiday weekend. Reform leader Nigel Farage has once again attacked the Prime Minister's handling of the issue tonight as he prepares to unveil his plans for mass deportations in a speech tomorrow. More on that in just a moment, but first, here's our political correspondent, Liz Bates.
The boats just keep coming, with 212 people arriving yesterday, taking the figure for this year to over 28,000. And as more people arrive, there's more pressure on the Prime Minister to deal with this problem that has now sunk successive governments. After another summer of riots in the streets focused on asylum hotels, some are asking, is it time to suspend our legal obligations, including the European Convention on Human Rights?
one of the problems are international treaties, so we need to withdraw from them. If we're not going to do that, then this problem is going to continue for the next 3 or 4 years. I don't think we should be giving them asylum. We should be checking properly and giving asylum, sorry, I'm not being very clear, and giving asylum where we decide to give asylum.
This is a government and a Prime Minister that promised voters it would tackle illegal migration, but they've been in office for over a year and the tide is turning against them, with criticism now coming from all sides, including a former Labour Home Secretary, Lord Blunkett, who is urging them to get a grip, and new polling which shows that 70% of the public believe that they are handling this issue badly. Here at the Home Office, there's been lots of announcements, none of them yet paying off. And MPs have been feeling the heat this summer, with many speaking out over the increase in abuse and threats they've been subject to over illegal migration.
In the 10 years I've been involved, things have got a lot worse. People are more emboldened because of social media. I think especially under Elon Musk, the way that X went, that the algorithm changed and sort of people just do this for glory and likes, whereas, you know, there's human beings, MPs, who should never live in fear of doing their job.
But this won't stop political opponents trying to capitalise, with Reform leader Nigel Farage calling for mass deportations, adding his voice to the mounting calls for action and piling more pressure on the Prime Minister as Parliament prepares to return next week.
And Liz joins me now in the studio. Liz, lots of problems facing the Prime Minister when it comes to immigration, and now Nigel Farage is set to add to them.
Yes, this is probably the last thing that Keir Starmer wants, a press conference by Nigel Farage, but he's going to get one anyway. One thing we know about the Reform leader is that he has very good political instincts, and I think his instinct is telling him that this is the moment to really go hard and offer an alternative, particularly on this issue of illegal migration. We know this is something he has campaigned on now for decades. This is his issue. Now, he's going to have the press conference tomorrow, but he has written in the Telegraph as well this evening. So we have a pretty good sense of the kind of detail that he's going to unveil. Let me just read an extract of this to you. In what he's written in the Telegraph, in 2029, a Reform government will leave the ECHR, repeal the Human Rights Act and pass the Illegal Migration Mass Deportation Bill. As the title says, the aim of this new legislation is mass deportations, and the bill opens with a blunt obligation that will create a legal duty for the Home Secretary to remove illegal migrants. Failure to do so will mean breaking the law. Under these new plans, if you come to the UK illegally, you will be ineligible for asylum. No ifs, no buts. This strips the Home Office, the immigration tribunals and the higher courts of any jurisdiction to consider claims. So you see there, look, we've heard Nigel Farage talk about this issue many times, but real policy detail there, and this particular duty on the Home Secretary to remove illegal migrants. What he's trying to do is take the politics out of this and change the entire approach of government from the Home Office to force the Home Office to change its approach to illegal migration. Now, whether that would be possible, we don't know. We'll be able to question him on those issues and many more tomorrow. He's, as I say, laid a lot of this stuff out before, but I think we're getting way more detail than we ever have. And we'll get a real sense tomorrow when he's questioned whether all of this stands up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he says. For the moment, Liz Bates, thank you. Well, staying with immigration, the non-British-born population of Bournemouth has risen by nearly 50% in a decade. The seaside town has a complex relationship with migration. It needs migrants to work in the tourist industry, which is vital for the economy. But the influx in people has had a mixed reception with residents. Our communities correspondent Lisa Holland has visited the town and has this report.
A snapshot of Britain in the 80s. Beachgoers in the seaside town of Bournemouth, a place which has always been a magnet for holidaymakers and seasonal workers. Fast forward to the final days of this summer and the change is undeniable. In the Bournemouth area between the 2011 and 2021 censuses, the non-British-born population went up by 47%, and immigration everywhere has risen significantly since then. On the seafront, we find immigration is something white British people want to talk about, but not openly and not on camera.
The whole atmosphere of the place has changed, and it's strange to hear foreign languages spoken so frequently in our country.
Does that make you feel uncomfortable?
It does.
Is it the number of migrants that's coming? What is it?
Reportedly so, and visually that seems to be the case. I mean, we see what we see.
What do you see?
I don't see many, I suppose, white British people around.
Why does that trouble you?
Sorry, I can't answer that question.
The woman we're talking to asks for a minute to gather her thoughts. It's a question at the heart of Britain's tortured relationship with migration, and for some can be uncomfortable to consider.
It's like a sensitive, emotional... I remember how it was. I remember the community. I'm worrying that our society as Brits is being undermined by the people who are coming in.
For decades, Britain has wrestled with the thorny issue of migration. Who should be allowed into the country and from where?
Migration to the UK has changed since Brexit, but not in the way people who voted to leave Europe might have expected.
9 years ago, I visited Bournemouth to talk to people about migration ahead of the referendum. We've come back to the Cumberland Hotel. The EU flag no longer flies. It's a hotel where a decade ago the majority of the workforce were non-British EU citizens, many from Eastern Europe. Sean Nell is the general manager and has worked at the hotel since before Brexit.
Morning.
A lot of our workforce were EU nationals, and obviously Brexit, a lot of them have left. They've found other work other than hospitality. A lot of our workforce we're seeing now that we can recruit from is probably South Asia.
The staff gathered together for their own breakfast after the morning service tells the story of where most of the new recruits now are coming from. 28-year-old Shardul Thomas is from Delhi and works part-time at the Cumberland behind the bar. He did a master's in sports management and, like many others, came to the UK on a student visa. He says post-Brexit trade agreements with India opened up new opportunities for South Asians.
After Brexit, the Europeans were less, so we were able to get good jobs. It's good about people coming for good life, getting good life, upgrading their life.
When I first came to the Cumberland Hotel, Margaret Kubik from Poland was the assistant restaurant manager.
We enjoy breakfast, ladies.
9 years later, we tracked her down.
So the first roundabout, we do nice and easy, left first exit.
We discovered she's left the hospitality industry to work as a self-employed driving instructor.
When we met 9 years ago, we as the Polish people, we were very much accused of taking the jobs from English people, yes. And then now we are replaced by the South Asian people. Now they start at the bottom.
In Bournemouth, just like many other towns in the UK, protests have sprung up outside hotels housing asylum seekers. The hotels have almost become a focal point for wider concerns about migration. We find the subject isn't as difficult to discuss amongst a crowd of like-minded people.
We don't know who they are. We don't know who these people are. Who are they?
It makes you feel it's not England anymore.
The asylum hotel protests are generally countered by groups who are more sympathetic towards migrants.
Do you feel the fabric of your town, if you were born here, has changed significantly because of migration?
No, because it's always been a place where foreign language students visit. I think this lot down the road, they need somebody to hate. Now it's the Muslims, now it's the refugees. 10 years ago it was the Poles, the Eastern Europeans.
With more councils vowing to launch legal challenges over the government's use of asylum hotels, the immigration protest movement shows no sign of abating. And Bournemouth, like so many other places, continues to wrestle with its identity. Lisa Holland, Sky News, Bournemouth.
Police say this year's Notting Hill Carnival has seen far fewer incidents of serious violence than in recent years. It's estimated more than 1 million people have enjoyed the last day of the Carnival in West London. Organisers say the celebration of Caribbean culture is one of the world's greatest festivals, though more than 400 arrests were made over the 2 days. Here's our correspondent, Siobhan Freeman-Powell.
Draped in flags and adorned in jewels, the sun shone on Notting Hill this bank holiday as more than 1 million carnival goers gathered to celebrate Caribbean culture. Great food, loud music and dancing mandatory. For one weekend out of the year, it's the people and the sound systems that own these streets.
That is at the heart of it. I play a lot of reggae here on Jamaica Corner and all the derivatives that have come out of reggae. The food is Jamaican along here, and in essence there's always Jamaican flags, and it's just to promote Jamaica as an island because it's a very special island to me.
Running for nearly 60 years, Notting Hill Carnival has only grown in popularity and is now considered Europe's biggest street party. And of course, with an event this size, there has to be a huge police presence, with around 7,000 officers on duty over the course of the bank holiday weekend. But organisers highlight that with more than 1 million thought to be in attendance, crime is relatively low and shouldn't overshadow the vibrant spectacle, which is bursting with colour and sound, and a celebration born out of resistance to racism.
Well, Carnival is about a struggle. It's not just about the fun side, but obviously the fun side comes from having to live through struggle. So I think Carnival is a coming together of people. It's a celebration, I think, of the Windrush and all that's done to help this country. And sometimes that gets forgotten about.
But it's an event that almost never happened. Despite generating millions of pounds each year, it still faces challenges for funding and concerns over security. So when the streets empty and the music stops, the struggle to secure the Carnival's future may well continue. Siobhan Freeman-Powell, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the broadcaster and commentator Alexandra Andreu and the chair of the Women's Business Council, Mary McLeod. Welcome both. And among the stories we'll be discussing this on the front of The Guardian, the headline, Global Condemnation after Israel bombs the same Gaza hospital twice. We'll be right back.